Hey guys, today my brother and I talked to Phil Kahnke, who is a super passionate waterfowl hunter and an incredible waterfowl photographer. He takes some of the best waterfowl images in my book. You should definitely follow him on Instagram at Phil Kahnke. Check out his website, www.philkahnke.com, Kahnke. You're definitely going to want to look at his stuff before you get into the podcast. But we have a blast talking to Phil. Super nice dude, incredibly knowledgeable, and it's just a freestyle conversation, and we just hang out and talk duck hunting. One of my favorite duck hunting conversations I've ever had in all time. Can't be more excited to release this to you guys. Ton of fun. Thanks. So this is the Average Waterfowlers podcast. Today we have Phil Kahnke on. Is it Kahnke?
Yep.
And
Correct.
what is it?
Kahnke. You're right.
Kahnke, sweet. Okay, so he is a badass photographer, and basically I've been following his stuff on Instagram for a long time, and I was one of the first people that I wanted to get on this podcast, and I convinced him to do it. So I'm really excited to have him on. And real quick before we get going, just because I'm sure people are, if they're following this or watching along, are going to want to kind of take a look at your stuff before, as they're looking at this and listening to us. Where would they find your work?
Pretty much all over the internet, really. Some of the most accessible places, if you're on accessible, would be Instagram, just Phil Kahnke or Phil Kahnke Photos, Facebook, and then I have my own webpage, which I started. I've had it lingering around the internet for years, but never was really much of anything to look at. Spent some time recently and got it up and running. It's just philkahnke.com. Last name is Kahnke. So I have stuff available for sale on there and just to browse and look at. So
yeah,
but all over the place. On Instagram, you'll see a little bit of my musings with all my photos. I like to write a little bit usually about them. So
yeah,
maybe give a little background on what I'm actually doing or was doing or whatnot at the time.
Cool. Yeah, I love it, dude. Huge fan. And you just got a spread in Greenhead magazine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Same deal. One of the guys who, I think, editor of that magazine, actually saw my photos on Instagram and sent me a message saying he wanted to maybe use some. So I sent him a bunch, and next thing I know, I had 5 photos in there, big, full page to half page photos. So that was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, you get the best pintail shots, man.
We've got them in the spring up here like crazy. We don't see them as much in the fall. We see them a fair amount. But, man, in the spring, they're everywhere. You find some of that little shallow flooded grass stuff, and they are absolutely loaded. So,
nice.
Cool deal. It seems like they get stalled out here a bit. They're some of the earlier pushers when they come back. They're one of the first ones to come back in spring, so they load up like crazy on the edge of the ice, and anywhere like that was open water. So, kind of fun to chase after them then.
Is that something you do just for fun? You go out and take pictures outside of hunting season as well?
Yeah, most of my photos are from the spring. Several reasons for that. One, I'm just like any other duck hunter in the fall. I like duck hunting. My time's limited behind the gun, so when I can actually hunt, I'd rather do that. Mm-hmm. And over the last probably year to two, I've really started to try to actually capture more like that hunting scene. Get the photos of me and my buddies and them setting up decoys and the sunrises and all that other stuff that goes along with it. Because that's a lot of stuff that's cool to me about the hunting thing.
Right.
So when I'm hunting, I like to shoot. If you can hunt, I think we have a 70-day season. And if I can hunt, 25 of those, I'm doing pretty good. Or maybe 30, I'm doing great. Where I can hunt a little more than that, obviously, by traveling and going a little bit ways away from home. But even then, I just limited. You wait 12 months or 10 months for a season to start again. So I don't wait for a photography season in the fall. I wait for a photography season in the spring when the ducks are in full plumage and there's a billion of them and they're more concentrated and they're just not being pressured, and I can go out and find marshes and sloughs around within 20 miles of my house that might have 5,000 birds on it in the spring. You know, there's no one else chasing them. So I go ask permission. They're like, yeah, go for it. Take pictures.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And in the fall, you don't have to travel more to find those kind of numbers. So we have them. We'll get them like that up north of us and west of us, but you don't see it like that during hunting season, of course. Even in the little South Dakota where everybody thinks it's the mecca of duck hunting, we have enough pressure just from locals and from people traveling that you don't just find that kind of numbers all the time. And to really get like the photos that I want, you know, I don't stop. If I see 50 birds on a slough, I'm driving right past it looking for big numbers, because you just need, for one, the amount of times that you take photos. And you know, if I get home and if I take 1,000 photos, that's a great day. Probably 400 of them, I'm going to immediately hit the X on and delete those suckers, and they're gone because they're so out of focus that you barely identify what they are. And then the other 600 are, you know, probably 20% of those or 25% of those are great, the stuff that you see like on my Instagram page. And then another, maybe half of the rest are probably usable stuff, but not the great in your face or cool sharp type stuff. So
Right.
that's why numbers for that deal is the key.
What body are you running right now for a camera? You're taking 1,000 pictures, so
yeah. For ducks, I run a Canon 1D4. I bought it, probably 4 or 5 years ago, used. You know, and they were expensive as heck then, and now they're dang near nothing in relative to what they were brand new. And the reason I just use that, I came from a 1D2 before that. And the reason I like those, they are the Canon's professional level sports model. And I don't even worry about megapixels or any of that business. The only thing I'm worried about that is just the focus systems in them. They've got that top-notch focus system that catches and locks onto a moving subject so much better than, say, like their I guess they call it prosumer, like the 60, 70Ds, and that level of camera. So it makes a big difference. It does help. I mean, everybody, one of the funny things about amongst photographers is you always hear, oh, you must have an awesome camera. Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, it does help. I mean, I had an old 20D that I took photos with, and I have some that I have published, or not published, but just that I like and have printed off and show off. But without a doubt, these other cameras are designed more for that. So
cool.
People always ask me, you know, what to get started in this, what do you recommend for a camera? I always say, man, get a camera like I have if you have the money. Get the previous model if you've got $500, which is the 1D3. You know, that was their sports photography professional level camera. The guys took the Olympics for years before that. And before that was the 1D2, and probably over half my photos are probably taken with that.
All right.
You know, I think it's like an 8 megapixel camera or something. You know, old. You know, people see that now and they're like, no way can that thing take good pictures. But the megapixels and that don't matter. As long as you have a sharp photo, you're good to go. So,
like the big thing on that is like the full frame sensor, right? It's not a crop sensor, or is it a crop sensor?
These are actually full frame would be a 1.0, and then like the crop sensors, most of them are like a 1.6 in the Canon line. Mm-hmm. Those, the 1D up to the 1D4 are a 1.3 crop. Okay. So they provide a smidge of magnification in terms of that it just crops onto the back of the lens. Basically, the lens crops only a smaller part of the photo there. So it's putting the image over more compact, I guess is the best way to explain it.
I got
so with like the 1DX, which would be the next one up for mine, that's the full frame. Makes your lenses wider, gives you more field of view. So like if you see like the photos I'm taking of the sunrises or landscape stuff, I'm using like a 60, which is a full frame, a great ISO camera. I can use your lenses, you get more width out of them then. So
cool. Just
a little bit different setup, and plus I don't have to switch lenses. Then I hate messing with that stuff. So
yeah, for sure. And I want to circle back around to talking about cameras and like beginners, for sure. Yeah. Kind of explaining. The hard thing about it is like I'm just getting into photography, right? And I have like a 600D. It's like the most entry level DSLR. Yeah.
So I had the first digital Rebel that they ever came out with. So
yeah, that's exactly what I have.
It was horrendous back then.
It still is. It's not that bad. It's
they'll take decent photos. I've got some old ones on there that I still like. just more critical with lighting and that kind of stuff.
Right, right. And it's way better of a camera than I can use at this point. I feel like
Yep.
I'm just now getting. I went on YouTube, and I figured out what aperture was. F stops. I figured out ISO. I figured out.
So speed.
Yeah, all that. But I'm still like, I consciously know what those things are, but in the moment when I'm trying to take a picture, it's like, what am I
How to
doing?
implement them and make them work together is
Yeah.
kind of a probably.
Yeah, it's like I'm
Yeah.
sitting there screwing with that shit so much that by the time that the opportunity presented itself, I'm like,
gone.
yeah, exactly.
It's just time playing with it, man. Like I was the same way, and really when I, there was a moment, a specific day that made me, I think, transition. There was 2 days that made me transition from being decent photographer to better than what I was. One was the day I decided I was going to get my ass out of my truck and go and be in with the ducks and hide and do all that. And so many people to sit in their truck and off the window, and that you can get photos, but it's not going to be the same. But then the other day, it was a day on the Missouri River. It was like, man, it was like after duck season, like February, they piled into this little hole. I mean, thousands and thousands of them. And I took my boat, like 5 mile boat ride. It was like 10 degrees. Got in, walked in like half a mile, 3/4 mile, and just had tons and tons of photo opportunities. I'm thinking I'm killing it. And I get home and absolutely exposures were horrible. I left it on auto exposure, and I had perfectly blue skies with clouds, but a black duck. Or the opposite with the duck was perfect, and the skies were white and nothing behind them. Like, man. And I was super disappointed. Out of like 1,500 photos, it was bad. I could barely keep any. So I said, you know what? I need just to learn how to shoot manual exposure. And the day I started doing that, it was frustrating the first few times. But once you get it down, it's simple. And that you have so much more control over the scene then. I mean, absolutely no comparison. You're
Is he bouncing in and out for you, Phil?
Yeah, he's bouncing in and out.
What's that?
You were cutting in and out just then.
Okay.
But
so basically, what the key is learn how to use a manual exposure, not manual focus. Everybody gets the two confused. Got to run autofocus, but manual exposure to keep those things, to keep the control in your hands, so you can always come back to your computer, take those images, and then use your software to make it look like what you want.
Right. Yeah, that was a big thing for me, like that I got early on listening to another hunting podcast that's not waterfowl related. I don't know if you just got back from scouting an elk hunt, right? So do you ever listen to the Gritty Bowman? It's an archery elk hunting podcast, and it's on YouTube. But one of the guys there, his name's Aaron Snyder. He's a phenomenal. Yeah, he's a phenomenal photographer as well. And he was like, the biggest thing I can recommend is that you just take it off auto and figure out aperture and those things for yourself, because it's a huge deal.
It makes you understand like lighting so much more and focus and all that stuff so much more than just letting the camera do it. And I'm sure there's a ton of guys that just use full auto and take amazing shots, but man, the stuff I'm doing, and you leave it way too much up to chance. The minute your little sensor goes off the duck and hits that bright blue sky, your duck's going to be a black shadow.
Yeah.
And I've had enough of those that I'm sick of it. So no more of that.
So you're in South Dakota, right? Where in South Dakota are you?
I'm in Southeast. If anybody knows where Sioux Falls is, it's I'm right between there and Mitchell, the home of the Corn Palace.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Did you drive
80 mile an hour speed limits?
80 mile an hour speed limits, yep. Matches the wind most of the time.
Yeah.
Never ending out here.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I moved here. I had a chance to move here from Minnesota. Grew up in southern Minnesota. I worked for Cabela's, and I had the opportunity to move out here. And someone asked if it was for a promotion, and they asked if I'd want to go to Mitchell, and I said, give me just a little bit, and called a couple buddies that I knew the Mitchell area, and um, asked them how duck hunting was, and they said, yep, you want to do it. I said, call them back, said, yep, let's do it. So I'm not, Mitchell itself and where I am isn't exactly the heart of we're really a little bit off of the mecca of the duck stuff, but I have two great areas right around me. I got the Missouri River, which is my favorite place to hunt, to the south of me, an hour. And I got all those northeast lakes that any video that you see in South Dakota is probably where that stuff was filmed. So I've got them both right within 2.5 hours on either direction. So can't really beat it.
That's awesome, man.
Heck, if I drive an hour and a half west, I can duck hunt till like January 15th. Start September 27th and hunt through January 15th. If I make that little bit of a 2-hour round trip from me, I can hunt anywhere from that time frame. And geese through September 1st through February 15th. So we have like a 5 to 6 month waterfowl season basically.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's not fair.
Hunting is tough at the end of it, but I mean, it's cold and you're pretty limited opportunities, but you can do it if you want to. So
yeah, and you said you often will go down to Nebraska as well. Hunt Nebraska.
Yeah, we hunt right on the edge of Nebraska, basically. We hunt there. In a given season, we do might go up to like South. And actually, since I moved to South Dakota, my hunting range is actually limited. I just because I don't need to, because the opportunities are good enough here that I don't need to go so far. When I lived in Minnesota, it was always North Dakota, and then we do Minnesota, and one year we did Illinois for something different, and then I never did Iowa, I guess, but now our trip now is South Dakota from beginning of season through probably mid-December, when it really things kind of lock up pretty much for us. About Christmas time was when we're pretty much done no matter what, and that's the places I like to hunt are pretty much done or the season's closed then. Mm-hmm. So then we'll do obviously we hit Arkansas in January, mid-January, or actually basically the end of the season, I guess I would say.
Yeah, that's the best time.
Yeah, try to lengthen our season as much as possible. And just with work, being in retail, I don't have much of an opportunity to get out at Christmas time, which is when I'd love to go, or even early December. I'd love to get down south and do that when there's some leaves on the trees, but that's pretty much out of commission for that. So I'm lucky to get away 3 days in a row at home, much less, 6 or 7 days down south. So.
Right on. What's the so you said you hunt the river. Explain to me, because we're not familiar. We hunt off of the Mississippi River a lot, right? And that can be anything from like flooded islands to a lot of flooded timber type stuff. What is the scenery like that you're hunting off of the river? Is it on the river itself, or is it?
Yeah, I don't know if you ever, how old you guys are, but if you've ever seen Barney Caliph's, take them 4, 5, and 6, 3, 4, and 5 maybe. They're old. He's hunting on a big blind boat, hunting on the Missouri River. It's a big, without giving away my favorite hunting spot, it's just a huge section of marsh, long, can be shallow water, hard bottom. And hunting can be amazing or it can be super fickle depending on what the migration is doing. And it's a big pressure spot. Tons of guys come to hunt it from all over the country. I mean, there's guys from Louisiana. The last 3 years I've seen they're same dudes every year. And they come from all over. But it's big, tall phragmites and cattails, little pockets, big pockets, streams, moving water. It's kind of where the river, upstream from where I hunt, it's a river, got some current in there, it's slower current, and then past it, it's a lake and reservoir. So it's kind of where over the years, it's grown since some of my buddies that are probably in their 50s, since they've hunted it when they were younger, the marsh has grown miles and miles out into the lake. So it's just an ever-growing deal, and you've always got new places to hunt. It changes every year, so kind of a neat deal. I mean, for me, it's like for a guy who likes to hunt ducks and call ducks, especially out of a boat over the water, I don't think you get much of a cooler spot than that.
Yeah, you were saying that on the phone last week that, I mean, a lot of times when you think of South Dakota, North Dakota, you think of guys hunting and layout blinds in fields. but you are pretty much 100% in the water.
Basically won't hunt water for ducks anymore. It's one of those deals. I did it a bunch right when the Mojo revolution started, back in the early 2000s, and it was fun and it was cool. For one, it just got to be such a mess. It's just a scouting game to me, basically. If you find the cornfield and you get permission, you're gonna kill the birds for the most part. I mean, especially if the sun's out, it's a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
Water's a little more, I would say, of a challenge, and to make that a little bit more of a deal, I've actually gone just to no Mojos. We just got rid of the Mojo thing, and we just throw out a big spread of duck and geese and hide the boat and blow the heck out of our duck calls and have fun. Try to put yourself underneath where the birds are going. Yeah,
that's the most fun way to do it.
The home of the field hunters. I mean, there's no question. You can go, if you went north of me 2 hours, heck, an hour, and we're one of a big staging spot is here, and it'll start in early November. It'll start to really load up, and everywhere around there's just guys absolutely loaded up with 4, 5, 6 Mojos spinning in the field, and
Jeez.
100. Oh yeah, dude, you wouldn't believe it. It's crazy. I mean, there's probably guys that use more than that. I think I don't pay much attention anymore, but it's just a different deal. I don't have anything against them if they want to do it. I have no problem, and actually, it's great because then they're not in my spot. So, and the only thing that bugs me about it is a lot of the field hunters give the water hunters a bad rap for being the roost busters and this and that. And there's different ways to hunt water, of course. I mean, you can go in and hunt right on 5,000 ducks if you wanted to on the water, but I don't think most guys who are, I would say, veteran or intelligent water hunters are going to do that unless it's the last day of the season. You're probably not going to mess with them. You're going to find a way to pick them off the edges or move away from them a little bit, or heck, even get on a totally different body of water just between where they're roosting and where they're going to feed, and just chase them and pull them down. That's basically all we're doing on the river the whole time. We try not to, if we know there's a bunch of birds, we try not to be right exactly where they are. You want to move a mile off of them so that you don't have a big black mob sitting right next to you. And you're going to have enough consistent traffic going over that eventually you're just going to break some down and they're going to do it right. So
I think you just laid out the exact same way we like to hunt. I mean, and if I could convince other people to stop bringing Mojos out, I wouldn't hunt over Mojos either, just because it's like, it's something weird about having a robot in your
being the deciding factor of your hunt.
Yeah, it's just not.
I always think, and it's one more damn thing to deal with. Oh God, did we charge Mojo batteries? Oh man, how much should we put out? Oh, let's put out 3. Oh, should we angle them this way? God, they're not finishing. Let's turn the Mojos off. Let's put the wings faster. Put some pantyhose over the wings to make them not so bright. Oh, let's move them closer. And all the Mojo batteries are dying. Oh God, we forgot the Mojos. God, we can't shoot anything now. It just got to be such a crutch, and I gotta give my friend Levi the credit for kind of getting me away from them. I'd not wanted to use them for a long time, but I was one of those deals where I just always was. After you started using them for a while, you just feel like you got to have them. You got to have that flash in the spread, and so the last couple of years we just haven't used them, and it's so much more rewarding and so much just less hassle. You're not out trying to jam them in and walk around and pick them up and taking the wings off, and the wings are falling off and your hands are cold, and just one less thing to mess with. So,
or they fall over in the water.
Oh God, I can't tell you how many of that times I've had that crap on that river deal. It's sandy, and there's enough current that a lot of times it'll just wash the sand away. So next you look and it's doing this. By the time you get to the boat, it's gone, and you're like, oh, now what? You start kicking around to find it. So
yeah.
I mean, I've lost. God, I can't over the years. I can't think of how many Mojos I had to replace. Thank God for my discount at work, I guess.
Yeah, dude. They're not cheap, but they're cheaply made. And so they never last more than a season anyways. So
if you get 2 of them, you're doing great, especially if you're in the water. If you're hunting corn or dry fields, those guys I think are getting pretty good time out of them because they're just not rusting and the motors aren't seizing up. But man, trying to keep them good, once they've been in the water, you're pretty much done. The remotes are shot and they make noise and they're too noisy. That's another thing that I just found I love. It's not listen to that clunk, 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 clunk,
yeah,
clunk.
I hate that noise. I hate that noise.
If you found a quiet one, God, that thing was amazing until the first time you dropped it or something, just to set it off enough. that it was noisy as hell. And then you're going, God, now I got to listen to this thing all day long. Well, that's like been one of the absolute coolest things about it is just not having the hassle and not having the sound and just going back to just being able to blow duck call and just killing them with your duck call. You know, it's not like it's some magical feat of nature. I'm not out shooting stone sheep in the mountains, you know, but it still feels a little more pure, I guess.
Yeah.
Using the Mojos does.
I mean, I get what you're saying. It's not going out and like killing a stone sheep, but there is like that's part of duck hunting to me is like getting out there and being away from from technology, right? And then to have like a Mojo out there is like kind of seems
counterproductive.
Yeah,
especially when it's like for a lot of people it's such an important deal. I mean, it's the thing. I mean, like, you might as well not have decoys sometimes, and I've seen even on the water, I've seen every number of guys have just unbelievable contraptions. I think I was telling you the other day. I mean, I saw that in Arkansas and up northeast there, we saw walking through the woods. We were coming back. We'd walked in a little further than everybody else, and we come back through. And I mean, these dudes, you could see them from like through the woods from like a quarter mile away, just flash and stuff spinning and stuff kicking the water. And I mean, I bet you they had 6 or 8 Mojos, and some were hanging up in the trees, and they had little doohickeys that flipped the water around and spun and kicked, and they had a couple other like the mallard machines, or not the mallard machines, the vortexes that were spinning.
Yep.
Like, I mean, that's 30 to 45 minutes of setup, I bet, just that.
Oh, dude. And then the guys with the private blinds or on private land will have circuits out there, you know, basically. Yeah, it's too much.
They can turn them on and off at certain times. Yeah. It's like a DJ, like hitting the switches. And, come on, man. And granted, they're effective, and there's a time when they work.
Yeah,
but,
no doubt. And
you can without it, it's just a lot better feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have anything against guys using them, especially if they're young, new hunters, and they don't have the experience to working with a duck call. And for sure, there's times when a duck call is just not going to do it. But a jerk rig could, in my book. So I'll use a jerk string for sure.
That's the one gadget that is actually useful.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. They're kind of a pain to deal with at times, especially if you're in deeper water. But man, if you got some nice shallow water, God, those things are amazing.
Yeah.
Easy to deal with. Throw them out, you're good to go.
The only sucky part is wrapping them back up after wrapping the string back up. Oh man.
Taking the decoy off, getting them back on their little thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, then your gloves are immediately wet.
Yep. I don't even wear them.
Yeah, you might as well not. And since there's really no such thing as a waterproof glove unless it's made of rubber, you're pretty much out of luck. So
I've never. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think a jerk rig is by far more useful than a Mojo is, and way more effective. Especially like you get a bird working.
Yeah, for finishing them.
You pull it when he's on that corner, and he's coming right to it. So.
Absolutely. Mojo's got that long range draw, and there's no doubt about it. I mean,
they can see it from a mile.
I remember back in the day, the first time we ever used one, I mean, we didn't know what to think, and my dad bought one, and I'm like, why did you buy this stupid thing? What a waste of money. And look at this thing, how stupid it looks. So we were on a spot, had a bunch of ducks, local birds, Minnesota. They were stale. It was like mid to early October already. It was a place that got hunted a bunch, but there was probably 500 to 1,000 birds on this body of water. So one day we were out there and everything went out to feed, nothing stopped. So, well, let's put this thing out and try it. So we throw it out and sit there, and God, not more than 10 minutes later, we're actually laying in the cattails, this dry ground. And we're laying there just looking up, and I go, God, is that a duck? I think it is. And we're just staring up in the sky, and nobody else can even see it. I'm like, God, it is a duck. And sure enough, the dang hen pintail came from so far up that you couldn't even, just a speck in the sky without a wing beat, hovered over the Mojo, and we shot it. We're like, maybe there's something to do with this. We, no one else had used one. We didn't know anybody had used one yet. We were the first ones to have one. We sat there and we're like, well, let's see what happens. Sure enough, next flock comes by, boom, right in on it. We're like, this is not what's happened the days that we didn't have one out. And in that year, it was unbelievable. I mean, absolutely. We had an unbelievable season because no one else had them. Birds had never seen them. It was ridiculous. That was just one Mojo, and it was crazy. The next year was good, and then by then everybody had them, and it was pretty much about what it is now. Maybe not quite, but it's slowly declined, I would say. But it was those first couple of years with them were amazing.
Yeah, that's what we've heard. You know, you hear the story of like the glory days, the first kind of 2 years they came out with them. We didn't start hunting until after that, so we missed that time period.
We ran into a guy in Dave Donaldson. We didn't know the rules of Dave Donaldson, and there's a couple of holes right along the refuge line that most guys, if they've ever hunted there, would probably know it. We thought we were going to get in there first, and it was going to be our spot. Well, we get in there first, and they just joined us because it's their hole. Mm-hmm. And we hunted with them. It was really cool. They taught us a ton about what it was, and one of the old guys was telling us about. They hunt that hole every single day, no matter what. That's where they hunt. And they might have shot a duck out of there for 10 days in a row, but that's where they're hunting the 11th day. And they hunted it back in the day. First year Mojos came out, and they said, and they were the only ones to have them, and they said they killed like 1,600 mallards or 3,200 mallards out of that hole in 1 year with like 6 or 7 guys, whatever it was. So it was unbelievable out of one hole in a 45 or 60-day season, whatever it was. And then the next year it went down by like 25%, next year down by 25%, and then after that pretty much is what it is now. They said the first year is unbelievable. Wow. So absolutely nothing compared to it. Everything. Flocks were finishing down in the hole, doing it right. And then
I just lost your audio.
Oh, still there?
Yeah, you're back now. You're back.
Yeah. So, yeah, but their effectiveness is not what it was, but you go slap those suckers out in a cornfield up here, and you're going to have yourself a heyday for the most part. If you happen to have 5,000 birds coming into it the morning before or the night before, you're going to have a good time, I imagine. That's
crazy. I've never done that. Never dry field hunted. Neither of us have. Have you, Caleb? No. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you'll dig it. If you're up here anywhere, if you go to North Dakota again, you should do it. It's fun. I mean, there's no question. Not as cool for me as doing it in the water, but man, you don't get 1,000 birds to finish over the water either in your face, which you'll get in a cornfield.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see that. I'm more interested in seeing 1,000 birds finish than I am actually shooting into that group of birds, just because I want to see what that's like for sure.
It's loud.
Is it?
It's cool. It's just that, especially it's cool if they're coming from behind you. It's cold out. Maybe you're not looking. All of a sudden, they just make that coming over you from the back front. As soon as they start to really hook and bank, they're just ripping. If you imagine 500 birds all at once just doing the same thing right on top of you. Wow. And a lot of times, and if they're fresh birds and they haven't been hunted too bad, I mean, they're going to do it in one pass. And so it's just flipping and dipping and just cut tight as you can get. It's cool.
That's real cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. You guys dig it. It's fun. Do it once, then don't do it again.
I mean, we love to hunt over water.
You'll be hooked once you do it once. You'll dig it for a while. Because once you find the field, man, you're in the money.
Yeah. So we hunted North Dakota last year, and we had the opportunity to hunt fields, but for whatever reason, we never did. And I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed just hunting out of the cattails there, in those little sloughs. It's just a beautiful experience, man.
That's little potholes like that. I mean, I could say that's my favorite way to duck hunt, about probably 6 different ways to do it. But hunting those little pockets like that are so fun. I mean, everything's in tight, especially you got some nice bottom, maybe you're just chilling in the cattail, standing there waiting, got a marsh seat or something, and everything is just like up close and intimate, and it's just fun that way. It's pretty much how I grew up duck hunting. So bigger water stuff came later.
When did you start hunting? How old were you?
Man, I was like 7, I think. 7 or 8. Probably 7. I was 7 or 8 when I shot my first duck. Minnesota, you pretty much could just go whenever. Then when you were 12, I think you had to have your gun safety or whatever. But, so I've been hunting, I'm 40 now, just turned 40, so I'm 32 or 33 years. Back in the days of green camo or no camo and army netting and the whole 9 yards, herders, decoys, and I'm actually from the town where Herders Decoys, if you know Herders or all that, Herders, the tradition there. I'm actually from the town where that started and where the shop was. So
Really?
Are they still making decoys?
No, they're out of business now. Cabela's bought them out years ago. Pretty much just quit the line. I think they may have sold the molds, but I'm not sure.
They're doing waders, I know for sure.
Yeah, they got a Herders wader line. But yeah, the decoys are done. I was super depressed when I went to college. My dad got rid of all of our Herders decoys. And we probably had, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 dozen, like 72s and 63s, and all gone. So he just gave them away. So I'm sure the guy he gave them to him, if I asked him for them back, would laugh at me. So they're gone. But I'd love to have them now. I was just telling the buddy I'd love to throw those suckers in the boat and hunt over them a few times. I mean, they'd work. I think they'd work just as good as everything else out there. So.
And the Herders decoys are the ones that are they're foam, and then they've got the printed.
Well, that was the not Mirage. Man, I should know the name of that. But they had they had one that was printed and had a hard like plastic shell over the foam.
Yep.
But typically, like traditionally, the Herders was just a foam body painted on, no detail hardly, a green head, gray back, a little bit of red. That's it. And then they
was it canvas wrapped or no?
They made canvas wrap. They made burlap. They made burlap ones too. So they did have both actually. So they had both. But I would say in general, Herders decoys, the foam, the burlap was another one, and then God dang, I wish I could think of the name of that other one. But they were a pretty cool deal. They were like a photograph wrapped around on a hard shell. So they were super tough.
That's what Patrick hunts over. Josh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a cool deal.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He does have those old decoys, doesn't he?
Foam, probably. They still have a foam head on them.
Yep.
Wow.
Head with like a. Oh, that was yeah.
You're back. You're kind of popping in and out.
Yeah. So yeah, but my Herders are gone, and so my dad's hunted forever, of course, just because of that. So that's kind of how I got started. It's been, man, it seems like forever, but it didn't seem like long at all, really.
So you still hunt with your dad?
Not much. He doesn't hunt. He actually moved out here to South Dakota and doesn't hunt very much anymore. Really? So he moved out here, and when I moved out here, when he retired, just for something to do, and he guides pheasant hunts. South Dakota is like the pheasant hunting state, capital of the world. And he just works for a guy that I knew, and guides pheasant hunts pretty much every day of the year. So take him out a few times here and there, but he's basically busy all the time. So got a small little group of guys that hunt with. It's hard to find guys that are just dedicated to water hunting in this state specifically. So there's probably 6 guys that I hunt with a lot. Two mainly. A couple other guys, they can get free. I'll hunt with. But just a small little group of people I hunt with. Always, rarely more than 3 of us total. Once in a while 4. I hold 4 people, but I'd be shocked if I hunt 4 in it very often. So just nice to just have. I'm a fan of small groups. You're not burning your spots up. You know what you're shooting. A lot more effective. It's easier. Everything's just easier. So other than you got a little more work to do.
We're the same way. We hunt a small, tight group, same guys every year. Yeah, you know what the guy next to you is going to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what to expect, and everybody knows when they want to shoot and when I let them go. Yeah. Not even a question. Like we almost don't even have to say take them. Everybody just knows if they come over at 30, we're going to let them pass again, and we're not mad at each other for not calling it because we didn't want to shoot them that time. We wanted them at 15 right over the decoys, so we're not out then, Yeah. So no one's yelling, no one's fussing about that kind of stuff. So we all want the same thing. Which makes it super easy.
We still get into a couple fights over that for sure.
Yeah.
I can't say I haven't second guessed sometimes, but we usually let it go pretty easy.
Caleb and I like to shoot him close, and our buddy Scott just likes to shoot him. So he's
just like pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Well, the issue there is Scott is probably one of the better shots I've seen.
Yeah.
Ever, and he can shoot.
Yeah.
And he, like, if he's going to pull the trigger, you know something's coming down,
Yeah.
right? And me and Josh were like, let's get him in a little closer so we can make this a done deal. So,
Oh, yeah. Kill 2 or 3 out of a group each.
Yeah.
Pull one. And you put a flock of birds at 30 yards, and not many guys are going to kill more than one bird out of it.
Yep.
Unless maybe if you're the first guy to shoot and you're coming up and they're not flaring before you shoot. But 30 yards, they hit 45 real quick, and it's tough. Even good shots at 45, 50 yards, or you might hit them, but they might not fall.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
If you can get that bird, because there's always one bird in the group that goes straight up.
Yep.
So if you can hit the first bird and then go up, you can get him too.
Absolutely. Especially if you can get him before. If you can get that, that's one of the things I like about some of my blinds and just hunting is that, and being set up so that you get that first shot off. And you're standing up before they know that the shot is the flare, not busting out of a blind and things flipping and all that baloney. You've got the shot is what is for them the first indicator. You basically get a free one. Then everybody gets a free bird, and then you go from there.
Yeah. So I've got a question of what kind of geese decoys. So you lay out geese decoys too as well?
On the wall, yeah, on both. On the water, it depends on where we're hunting. Sometimes there's sometimes we have just very few geese around in a lot of the areas, so I won't mess with them at all unless I'm just trying to use them for like a duck decoy. The more that I've gotten away from using Mojos, the more I've started to use goose decoys, just for the fact that big black thing out there really sticks out. I've got probably 30, 2.5, 3 dozen Bigfoot floaters, and then a bunch of like our old herders, the new herders, Cabela's ones, they're a little bit smaller bodied ones. I use those too as well, just to throw them out, but rarely do I put that many out just because of the size. In my big boat, I can hold like 100 mallards, 100 G&H mallard decoys, and like 2 dozen Bigfoots pretty easily without having them cluttered on the floor or bagged or nothing. I just got spots for them. I start putting more than that, and then I've got stuff on the floor, and people are walking over them and all that baloney. So usually about 2 dozen of a run, and we'll put those up at the head, kind of the back upwind side of the spread, I guess, so that they suck into that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, but the thing that we've been experimenting with is like how far we're moving them up and down, and I don't think we really have that dialed in, No.
Yeah.
Are you keeping them pretty far away from your ducks or your duck decoys?
No, we run right, like literally right into each other. It all depends on like the setup. I mean, it seems like we always end up having some form of a side wind or a little bit of an angle, like something coming over a shoulder maybe. So like, say it was coming over my right shoulder, I would throw the geese, all the ducks stacked up on the shore, little finger out this way, ducks stacked up here. So I got a pocket right here, and then, or maybe pocket here, I guess ducks around here, and then geese back just a little further, like actually probably a little further than what we would really shoot. The guy on the right would be able to shoot right over them super easy. Next guy a little bit, and maybe this guy on the left not so well. But basically, they're going to land just short of that goose pocket or right in the open. And they just, that darkness, it seems like they just pull into that. And I don't know if it's necessarily they're geese or just a bunch of big black things out there, but they seem just to pull up to that always a lot better. So,
yeah.
There's been times where we're like, say we're putzing around, we're cooking or something in the boat, and we're not paying attention. It's that perfect bluebird day, but with 25-mile-an-hour winds and a nice chop, and the ducks will just do it with no calling or no mojos, and you'll look up over the blind like, oh God, there's ducks, and they're always right in the geese.
Really?
Always right in the geese. So they always land there, and maybe they swim in, but if they swim in, they swim in, but it seems like they're always up in the pocket. They're never out on the end of the mallards. They're always up in there. And that's with no calling, no finishing or nothing. So
when you're out taking pictures, do you ever see geese and ducks on the water at the same time and notice the same thing? Or are the geese not there in the spring, really?
Yeah, they're there together. Just different spots, though. Like, the geese are different. Like, the geese in the spring don't bunch up as much as they do in the fall. The ducks will bunch up really well, and the geese will. Geese are weird for me in the spring. Like, it's super hard to decoy them. like I almost don't decoy them because even though there might be 500, they're still super paired up. Like those birds will be place, and unless you hit that absolute front edge of the migration, you're not going to get those big numbers. So like any big numbers of geese that I get in the spring are from a ways away, and you don't ever get to decoy those, it seems like, in March or April. So it seems like I'm always just getting the pairs and the singles and 3s and 4s and that. But the ducks, they'll go together, but it seems like they'll sit off on different areas. Like the geese will maybe chill on like the sandbar, on the edge of the ice where there's still ice or something like that. Whereas the ducks will be out swimming and feeding in the water, that shallow grass or whatever there happens to be.
Gotcha.
So it's a little different deal. Like you couldn't, like if you were a great springtime duck photographer, you couldn't translate that directly back to duck hunting, I don't think, but you can translate the duck hunting to the photography side, just because you know how the ducks are going to act, you know how the wind affects them, you know what they like, you know what they like to be in. Different ducks like to be in this, just how they approach decoys, all that kind of stuff. So that part works, but the springtime, they're a little bit different bird. And heck, you can even start to see it, I think, that last week of the season in Arkansas. I mean, I think you even start to see it. Those birds are super paired up. They're a little hard to call. You're not breaking off. I mean, I say this, and there's guys who are obviously killing big groups, but I don't think that's maybe as much the rule as it is a little bit earlier, when you're probably bigger wads in, and then later in the season you're probably killing smaller bunches, I'm guessing. I mean, that's been my experience. You're killing a lot of that singles, pairs, 3s and 4s that break off a big bunch and pour in. 100%.
I mean, where we hunt's right across the river from Arkansas, right? So we're hunting the delta side in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And a lot of that too, I mean, has to do with how much water there is down there, I feel like, as well. Like, they were paired up and really just super thin almost all of last season because there was just so much water, at least where we were.
Yeah, there's tons of water. We even see it. It's kind of crazy. Some of the spots on the Missouri River up north of us and west of us there's not uncommon for there to be bays that'll have 10 to 20,000 ducks in it, and it's a refuge, and so no one can hunt it. But you can hunt it on the edge of the refuge line, and so guys will do it a fair amount. They'll hunt down on the sandy shore, put a big spread out, and it might be 10 degrees out, and those birds are sitting back in this bay, open water, splash around, having a good time. And you will, and I know guys, and I've done it, and I've seen it, where you'll kill 2 guys, will kill 10 greenheads. Every one of them is a single drake.
Yep.
You won't see a flock.
No.
They're just a single drake will get up and go out and cruise and looking around for a hen, and whoop, they pop in and you kill them. They're just not doing the flock thing. And that's mid-January. So you move that back 2 months, and they're in full breeding mode, and they're a different species then. So like I love to blow a duck call, but I don't even bring a duck call with me anymore in the spring when I take photos. It's completely worthless. I used to do it, and it's just if I do, it's just to humor myself anymore.
That's in the spring, but in the fall when you're hunting, you're blowing a duck call for sure, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. I'm
of the aggressive type of duck caller, and everybody says, oh God, you can blow them too much, and you can, but I always maybe start off slow, start off medium, but I don't wait long to turn it up to get aggressive on them and try to break them down. If a soft hen doesn't do it, I don't waste much time getting aggressive with them. So
yeah, that first week of season when we hunted the first week in North Dakota, was it the first week or second week, Caleb?
I think it was just the second week, but it was the first week of pheasant season.
Yeah,
I don't know,
something like that.
It was something like that.
And man, those birds, I felt like responded to the call really, really well. Like you could, if you didn't want them to land on one side of your spread, you could get super aggressive and get them over to the other side of your spread, right where you wanted to shoot them. And
so that's unique for early in the season, I would say.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. Yeah.
Amongst like me and my buddies, we open up here in a month, basically exactly a month. I think like the 27th or something in September.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really get excited. I mean, we'll still hunt, but we don't get excited till about I would say like the 20th of October is when they start to really snap to a call for us around here. That's when you can flock of ducks cruising by, going overhead. You hit them and poof, and you see their backs. Mm-hmm. Before that, you might pull some off here and there, but it's not going to be the same deal. You're not trafficking them as much. You need to pretty much be where the ducks are. Once you hit that late October, early November, all of a sudden you can pull them with a duck call then. I don't know what it is, and part of it's probably just the fact that we're getting seeing a newer bunch of ducks, a newer migration has come in. It's that time of year where no matter what, we're just going to see some birds trickling in, and those are the birds that are more susceptible to a call and just to decoys and the whole deal. What's that?
Yeah, I felt like when I was up in North Dakota, because I do a lot of the calling for us, I felt that it was about the pothole you were on and the wind. And really, to me, it was like, if your back's not directly against the wind, like they might not respond to that call as quick as they would. And because I remember like the first few hunts, Josh, we had our back was not directly against the wind, and they were just landing like 40 yards out, boom. And no matter what I did, and then we finally started to move around the hole and really figure out the wind. And
I can't think. I should find it. I made a little rule of what I was sitting at lunch one day, just chilling out, and I was thinking, God, this is during duck season. I'm thinking like what the most important things I thought duck hunting was, and one of them, without a question, is just having wind. Mm-hmm. I mean, sunny skies, concealment, duck calling, wind. I mean, if you have all those, you're good to go. And you take any one of them away, and all of a sudden my confidence level in what's going to happen goes down considerably. So the wind, though, is something about them that just stirs them up or stresses them or something that just makes them that so much more susceptible to calling and the decoys. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. That calm day, God dang it. I don't know if they see better or they, maybe there's waves coming off the water and they can't see as well. I don't know what it is, and I don't even know what you contributed to. But
what do you think about the clear sky? What do you think why is the clear good?
Man, I don't know. I take a clear, sunniest day. I mean, for me, the ultimate day, southeast winds, east or southeast winds at sunrise, 15-mile-an-hour wind out of the southeast, and sunnier than can be. And I don't know if it's just one thing I know it is shadows. Mm-hmm. You're able to hide better, and they can't see all your movement as well. And I don't know. And there's got to be something about decoys. I mean, just a dull day. I mean, God, just like decoys are like poison those days. And they'll finish. It's not that you're not going to kill ducks, but I hate those dull, overcast days. I don't mind clouds up high, kind of thin stuff. But once you just get that gray, dreary day, I hate it. That's probably my most important thing. I think is some factor go my way at sun. That's gonna. If I wake up and I walk outside and I see the stars, I'm immediately in a good mood, ready to go. I'm happy.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have that than wind and other stuff. All important, but I think the clear sky is the key.
We very rarely have clear skies in Mississippi. I feel like it's almost kind of always
dreary.
At least the days that I end up hunting. I don't know. I mean, we definitely get the blue skies, but not like what we had in North Dakota when it was just like pristine blue sky every single day.
Yep. That's the best.
Yeah.
Nothing compares to it, especially if a guy's using a Mojo. Even if not, but if you're using a Mojo, I mean, they're done then. I mean, those are the days we always just call them robotized. I mean, they just came from a mile away without a wing beat, and you look, and they're already locked up. Like, only thing you have to call for is just to center them, to position them, like you're talking about.
Yeah. Do you? I feel like early on up in the season, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but up in North Dakota, like that second week, I really didn't even feel like we needed to call. I felt like if we just had our decoys out and the wind to our backs, those birds are coming into that spread.
I think, like Caleb said, if you're on the spot, A lot of it's scouting, and that early it's scouting and being on the spot. Then it's probably not as important. I would still say I would still feel naked if I didn't have a duck call on me, just to finish them that last little bit. And if they're gonna land on the right, and you hit them a little bit, and boom, it pulls them over to the left, just that little bit. But yeah, there's times where it probably doesn't matter.
Does that change throughout the season, though? Because we've only hunted really early in the season. So, I mean, do they become – I guess my follow-up question would be, obviously you need the call at some point, and then do they become call shy later in the season up there?
Well, I've had a fair amount of chances to hunt a bunch of different spots that are super pressured areas. Whether it's all the way from Minnesota all the way up to, I haven't hunted Canada, but I've hunted the North Dakota border and Canadian border there, all the way to Illinois off of Crab Orchard Refuge at Tim Grounds' place. You can't get much more pressured birds than that. Down to Arkansas Timber, Kaw Lake in Oklahoma, some super, super pressured spots. The place we hunt on the Missouri is major pressure. And to me, like the call shyness and the decoy shyness isn't necessarily based on the time of year as much as is it how long those specific ducks have been at that spot.
Yep.
So if you take, let's say I'm going to hunt here, we open, let's say September 27th, we open up, and I'm going to go hunt up by Webster, South Dakota, which is where everybody goes that comes to hunt South Dakota, whether they come from in-state or out of state. That's the main hub of waterfowl. So everybody's going to go hunt by Webster. And there's going to be 1,000 ducks on Bitter Lake, and there's a couple thousand ducks on this other lake. And those ducks, the first few weeks first few days are going to be dumb, and people are going to shoot them, and they're going to respond to mojos. You're going to be able to calm them a little bit. Well, then all of a sudden, 5, 6, 7 days into the season, even up here, even that early in the season, we'll have stale ducks. And I'm sure guys down south can say, "Oh, no way." Well, it's true. I mean, our ducks, they're in a pattern. They know where they want to be, and they know their surroundings, and you hit them with a call, and they're just going to scoot on by. Yeah. But all of a sudden, a week later, October 15th, we might get just a little bit of a cold front come in, and you get a little trickle of birds, and it might not even be super noticeable. Like, you're not going to go out to the slough the next day and like, "Oh, my God, look what's here." But you notice that there's birds on water that there wasn't birds on before, and there's birds over here. And all of a sudden, boom, you're killing them in the greenheads again. And you called them all in, and they did it right, and they weren't sketchy at all. And then all of a sudden we get to late in the season, say it's Christmas, and I'm hunting down on the Missouri, and we've been pounding them birds for 4 weeks straight. Guys from all over the country, Barney Califf, and dudes from Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, all over the place, coming and pounding on them, big spreads, big mojos, big calling, and guys are still shooting them, and all of a sudden they get stale, and nobody's killing anything. And then next thing you know, here comes a huge, maybe like the last storm of the year, and boom, I mean, massive amount of birds. But they've been getting hunted in North Dakota and South Dakota for the previous months, month and a half. And all of a sudden, bam, we're absolutely, I mean, you're done in 30 minutes. And you do the thing the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and it's everybody doing it. And then the next day, and the next day. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later, boom, it's done.
Right.
Also, the shooting in that time might be cut in half the one day, and the next day it's half of that, and the next day it's half of that, and then it levels off until those birds just get shot out of the area. Then they're done.
All right.
So to me, the call shyness and that isn't necessarily season like timeline. It's more timeline and where they are in the migration and how they move into a new spot. Like, I mean, if they move 50 miles to a new spot, they're dead in my book. I mean, those birds are going to be huntable and they're going to be super killable, just due to the fact that they're not familiar with your surroundings and they're fresh to that. I'd rather be hunting in Reelfoot Lake or any timber hole in Arkansas on the last day of the season with a gigantic storm that just came in and pushed all the birds from South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota down there, than have first week of the season, or second week of the season, and have birds that are haven't had as much pressure overall as long, but they've been in that spot for 2 weeks.
I agree.
Question.
Yeah, I used to be one of those guys. I think everybody from the South used to be one of those guys where it's like, The hunting down south is just so much harder. The birds are smarter. They've been hunted the entire way. But it's kind of nonsense because those birds could be in North Dakota in the morning and then 24 hours later be in our field.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know there's days where we've lost unbelievable amounts of ducks in a night. I mean, we get some pretty good storms, and we've had days where it was on an awesome streak, just kill them. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, the storm comes and boom, or it just gets super cold and everything just locks up. And all of a sudden all the birds are gone. And my buddy, the guides in Missouri, they're just killing them big time. Just absolutely killing them. And it's the same birds, and they're down south, they're in central southern Missouri. And all of a sudden, boom, they're killing them. And it's the same ducks that we had the day before.
Yep.
And if those birds move around, and the one thing I've always found that's kind of cool about, and I don't know where it starts exactly geographically, but it seems once they hit, maybe it's Missouri, central Missouri, like those birds will move north and south a lot more. Like once we lose our birds, they're gone. We won't get them back. But I hear a lot of guys talking, Arkansas. You get a cold snap and boom, birds everywhere. It's awesome. And all of a sudden, super cold, and the woods freezes, and the rice freezes, and everything freezes. And those birds are, boom, down in southern Arkansas or Louisiana. And all of a sudden, there's a warm up and a thaw, and boom, they're back up north again.
Yeah.
That's why I hate a southern wind.
Yeah.
A wind coming from the south, because it pushes them all back.
Yeah, it probably depends on where you're hunting. Like some guys, if they're the northern end, they probably like it.
Yeah.
So it's weird to us because we don't ever see that. And we don't. Once the mallards left South Dakota, I'd be shocked if they ever ventured back into the state. But it seems like it must be southern Missouri where they just kind of float a lot more freely back and forth. We don't see that ever, so I thought that was kind of cool. One time I've ever seen it is our late goose season in February. We shot little geese moving back up on a super warm day in February on the reverse migration. But otherwise, I've never really seen it very often during hunting season.
All I know is those dudes in Missouri last year spanked them.
Oh, warm out. We drove. My buddies were dead set that we had to go hunt the timber in Arkansas. And granted, we would have only had a couple days to hunt in Missouri because it was at the end of the season and their seasons were shutting down. And we drove right in the middle of the night, right past Truman and all these areas that I knew they were shooting them. I'm like, oh man, we should just stop here. Like, no, we're gonna kill them in the woods. I'm like, all right. And we got our butts whooped last year. The previous 2 years were awesome. The year before that was pretty good. And last year, yeah, we took it. I mean, it was tough. Toughest hunt I've had in the woods by far. And I had a few I told you so moments over that trip. Because I was like, God, we should just hunted the couple days that we had in Missouri and just called it good. And just gotten those, and then go down to Arkansas. And if we happen to shoot some birds there, great. If not, at least we had some good hunts in Missouri. But oh well, it is what it is. I guess. When you got half your states flooded, man,
it's tough, dude. And it never got cold. It just didn't get cold for us, man.
States, there's no reason for them to leave.
Yeah.
I was killing mosquitoes into January.
Ugh, dude, no way. God, I want those suckers gone. And I had 43 degrees when I woke up the other morning. I was scouting for elk, so that was cool.
It's
nice.
43 already?
It was, yeah, in the hills.
Wow. How's the elk scouting going?
Not bad. I'm an amateur elk hunter, so I was out this past couple days here, just a few days ago, and I found enough to know that the general areas that I want to go, I should be able to get in and track some down, so should be good to go. Actually, I leave in a week from tonight, so.
Nice. I'm so jealous, man.
What's that?
I'm so jealous. I was supposed to be going on an elk hunt September 10th in Colorado, and it kind of fell apart for me.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
This last week, still going?
Yeah. Things are... it's kind of
I can't say.
I'm depressed about it. I'm very depressed about it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go hit the mountains. The Black Hills are like mini mountains. So, and there's a fair amount of hunters, but I'm ready to go hit whether it's Colorado or Wyoming or Montana or Utah or something and do that. So this is a practice run for that for me.
Well, if you want to hunt elk, man, I'll be down to go to Colorado next year if you need a partner. Let's make it happen.
That'd be cool. Yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah, dude.
I don't want to go on my own. I know that. So
yeah, it's more expensive to go on your own. I feel like
gas money, sure,
yeah.
especially for you guys coming across the country.
Dude, I did the math on it. It's cheaper to fly out there and rent a car.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I suppose and just ship your gear out there and really for like a backpack and elk hunt, you don't really need that much stuff.
No, you just a backpack and your bow.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
No.
Oof. Yeah, I can only imagine what gas would be in that deal.
I drove from Atlanta to the Bob Marshall this summer.
Uh-huh.
And I went with a buddy, and I think to get out there and back, it was probably like $200 per person.
That's not too bad.
That's
Is there
not
a few,
bad.
just two of you?
Yeah, just two of us.
That's
It may
not-
have been a little more, like maybe south of 300, but it wasn't terrible.
That's a flight almost, though.
Yeah.
I remember, that's what we paid just to go to Arkansas. That's only 12 hours away from me. That was split between three of us a couple years ago when gas was $4 a gallon. This $2 stuff is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. I paid $1.71 today.
Oh,
I'm in the 60s, $1.60 down here.
Really?
guys are like where it originates from.
Yeah.
We're at
Yeah.
230 or something like that right now. But I'll take that. I mean, compared to what it was, that's way better.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love.
Yeah.
We hit $1.99 like a month ago. Then it stayed there for like a day, and whoop, right back up. So. But I won't complain. I'm not complaining about 220. It can stay there. I'd be happy if it stayed there forever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Makes fall a lot more affordable.
Yeah. You just need the Saudis to keep flooding the market, and we'll be good.
No kidding, man. Keep that the North Dakota fields just alive enough to keep them afraid of that oil. Then we're good to go.
Yeah.
You guys probably, where you were hunting, you probably ran into some of the oil fields up there, didn't you?
I think I saw like
See that
one
stuff?
head. I think I saw one head but no, not really.
You weren't too far from where all that stuff starts. That Bakken oil field is right up there, not maybe half hour away from you, hour
Yeah.
at most. Completely changed rural North Dakota. To the
Yeah.
point where a damn trailer house that used to be $200 to rent per month goes for $1,500 a month now.
It's crazy, man.
Whole different world. Luckily, none of those guys are duck hunters, though. So at least most of them probably aren't chasing the money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, are you coming down south this year?
Plan on it. I'm not sure where. I think I've convinced my buddies that this year is a little more weather dependent. I mean, rather than try just to force something to happen. I've always wanted to do like a Montana hunt where you're hunting with mountains in the background and those streams in January because they have a late season also, and a guy can go in there and have some cool hunts. I got a friend or two that's out in western Montana, actually, where it's like a 7 green head limit. So I'm hoping to get in on that deal.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
If the Arkansas deal doesn't work out, that's probably what I'll do. But it's just cool to go down. Like for me, it's cool to go down to Arkansas or even Oklahoma or whatever, where it's like a duck hunting culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you drive from Pocahontas to Dave Donaldson Access. Like every little farm has got a 16-foot John boat with 25 horse motor on it. Every single one of them. And it was just everybody's hunting, everybody's coming and going, and that's what they're doing around here. I have 3 aluminum duck boats and 2 little fiberglass 2-pointer type things. I probably have more duck boats than the other 1,300 people in my town combined.
Really?
Yeah, it just isn't a thing here.
It's weird, man, because it's like everybody hears down south of South Dakota, North Dakota. So it's like a big deal. When I was in college, like the guys that their dads took them to South Dakota or North Dakota, it's like, oh wow, man, you're going, and you would just think that guys up there would be really into it.
I almost think it's just because it's like there's so much of them, so many of them, that just was never really a deal, and it just partially too. One of the things was like South Dakota did not have ducks actually, and didn't have water I mean, this is only, I'm not exactly sure, probably 30 or 40 years ago, it did not have nearly the water that we have now.
Really?
Look up Lake Thompson. It's like exactly 45 minutes straight north of me. And I mean, the thing is gigantic. It's a monster lake. It's like 8 or 10 miles by 7 or 8 miles, huge. And one of the guys I work with, he tells stories about how they used to deer hunt it and pheasant hunt it. They walk across the whole thing. A few little pockets of water scattered here and there. But now it's 25 feet deep, 30 feet deep, and gigantic.
Is it
Is that
dam?
because they?
No, just rain, super, super heavy rainfalls, and that's a little bit of, I think it's a little bit of rainfalls, snowfalls, and then just some of the groundwater, like the groundwater rose, and then tiling and all that kind of stuff contributed. It was kind of like the storm. All these lakes, if you drive around South Dakota or North Dakota, you probably saw it. All the lakes that have the flooded trees in them and houses and that kind of stuff. It's all that same deal, and they all came up about the same time, I suspect.
So the water table basically rose, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a, I mean, and so I think that what happened was, that during that time period when all the people that were older that would have been duck hunters, when duck hunting was kind of getting to be a thing, before it was just for survival, there probably wasn't that many ducks around, so people didn't really bother with it. And now all of a sudden there's all this water and it's something new for everybody. And really the only reason people are doing it now is just the popularity it's gained on the internet and TV shows and that kind of stuff. Otherwise there'd be almost nobody doing it, I think, in the state.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's definitely a culture down where we hunt. Everybody hunts.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I mean, it's cool. I'm glad South Dakota is like it is, for selfish reasons, just for the fact that, I don't have to be at the boat launch at 3:45 a.m. most of the time. Most places I go working. Yeah. I could show up at sunrise and I'm the guy there and I get exactly the spot I want. I don't have to worry about it. But if you want to, if I cross the border back into Minnesota, it's a whole different world.
Really?
Oh yeah. Then it's more of a duck culture again, a little more.
Yeah. Are you hunting mostly public? So you're hunting mostly public land, right?
Both, yeah. For the most part, public.
What about Arkansas? Are you working with a guide when you go down to Arkansas, or are you doing your own thing, getting into trees yourself?
Straight public stuff down there. Just scouting our butts off has been the key to success there.
Yeah.
Walking and driving and boating. And the one thing I'm tempted to do, and it would suck for money, is just to take 2 boats down so guys can go different directions, because pretty limited with one boat to really scout a lot down there. You can only cover so much ground. Mm-hmm. Taking 2 boats, God, I think that would be the ticket, but that's 12 hours driving, 2 people stinks, so we just suffer with it and take one and make it work, I guess. But yeah, public ground. There's so much public ground in South Dakota that you can. I mean, if a guy puts the time in to scout, that's my problem. Is you don't. It's hard to just like. It's hard to. I work, and I'm an hour to 2 hours away from where I typically like to hunt, so I can't just run after work and go scout. It's dark by the time I get somewhere, so usually I end up taking off from work, go home, and then the next morning just go to a spot that I know that traditionally has ducks. Mm-hmm. Or maybe one of my buddies happened to be in the area and said, yeah, there's birds here, there's birds there. And you go there kind of blind, and then you hunt that morning, good or bad, you're done at noon, so that you can scout that afternoon spot for your next day.
That was one thing about North Dakota that I felt like was there's no trees, so you can see to the horizon line, which makes scouting a little bit easier.
Are so important.
Yep.
Especially like at sunset, like when you're trying to find or sunrise or sunset, and they're just big mobs of them. You just park somewhere where there's water around you, and just get on your truck and there's glass, and more than likely you're gonna find a tornado somewhere.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. See, I was actually thinking about that, doing that down here in the marsh, like bringing a stand on my boat.
Oh yeah.
And getting up above the grass and just with a pair of binos and seeing, because I mean that's the only really, no, I guess seeing them is one thing, but getting to them is going to be another thing, because the marsh is so confusing when you're actually in it.
That's the
So,
one thing I really wondered about when I was down there, because we did, like, I walked through the marsh, we drove around these stuff, and Lincoln, and I'm looking like, what do the guys actually hunt? I mean, that's what I was like, I think I wrote either on Instagram or on my Facebook post, like, anybody that follows me, if you live in southern Louisiana, I don't want to know your hunting spot 'cause I'm not going to drive down there to hunt, but just be cool to know, like, do you hunt like out on the ocean stuff? Do you hunt way back in the marsh? Are you in like the cypress stuff? Are you in like the salty stuff or the grass? Like, to me, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't done it really at all, hardly. I think the key is finding fresh water.
No.
And if you're down in the marsh, so basically if you're south of New Orleans or depending on where you are in Louisiana, you get a lot of teal and gadwall. That's mainly what you're shooting.
Yeah.
So I think the key is like when you're in the marsh and you're driving down these dredged canals, there's banks. And so the idea is you take your boat, and usually what people end up doing is they park their boat on like the dredged part.
Bank. Yeah.
They grab a canoe, take it over the bank, and put it in the fresh water that's there. And then they paddle to wherever they're going.
Okay. Interesting.
But
different world from what I would, from what we have up here. So
yeah, cool. And apparently, like if like a certain wind comes, it blows a lot of the fresh water out of the holes. So then like the duck hunting just is terrible for a little while until they get fresh water back in. And yeah.
How weird is that? Last thing I'd have to worry about.
Yeah.
I always find it funny, like, no matter where I am, all I'm thinking of is like, oh, that'd be a cool duck hunting spot. That'd be a cool spot. Oh, man, I wonder what that's like in the fall.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter anywhere. That's everything I'm looking at has water. I'm like, God, I wonder if that gets ducks on it. I wonder if anybody hunts that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what's going. I think that goes through any hunter's head.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got it in you.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, what else? Caleb, you have any other questions?
Yeah, so I guess like my question was just on like, one, what made you want to get into photography? And two, like what's the motivation behind taking the pictures that you take?
I forgot about the photography part. I need to come back around to that.
It just obviously just ducks. I mean, like, God, since even before I hunted, well, it probably couldn't have been then because I wasn't quite able to roam around freely when I was 8 years old. But like I saw my dad preparing decoys and getting ready for duck hunting, and so like the duck hunting thing was always this like cool thing to me. Then I got to do it, and also I'm like, holy crap, ducks are freaking cool. I love ducks in general, and I'd see them and hold them and look at them. And in the town I'm from, there was a lake, probably 4 or 5 blocks away from me. That at that point in time, it was right in town, but it had a lot of cattail and a little bit of marshy stuff to it. And it was cool because there was ducks all over on it, even in the summer. So I'd go down and I'd take my old Fox WA-33 or WA-11. I'm in braid, my string lanyard around my neck on my bike, and I'd be 10 or 11 years old, and I'd go down to the shoreline and just sit and watch ducks and listen to ducks. And I just always just like to be around ducks and the hunting aspect of it. So the photography thing for me was a couple-fold. One, it was a way for me to be around ducks. And two, it was a way for me to kind of just extend my hunting season in a way. I'm putting out decoys, I'm wearing waders, I'm setting up with the wind at my back and thinking of the sun. And, the photography side is 10 times more complicated than trying to shoot a duck. Way, way, way harder. Trying to get a good photo of a duck is like, like shooting a teal, getting a teal at 60 yards. It's easy. You're always going to have it happen. But trying to get a mallard or a widgeon or a bluebill or whatever at 10 yards with the sun right and the wind right and the background right, that's like, putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. And I remember, and I'll give credit to like the guy that I remember on, I think it was like the Refuge forums years ago. David Stimmick is an amazing waterfowl photographer, and the guy goes all over the world taking photos of ducks. And I remember seeing just those kick-ass photos of up-close ducks, kind of some of the, bluebills right in your face, and buffaloes right in your face, and mallards and pintails and all that stuff. I'm like, God, what if he can do it? I know enough about ducks, and I'm ambitious enough, and I always tinkered around with cameras a little bit, so I had a basic idea of photography. And so I said, you know what? I want to get those photos, and I want to be able to have my own photos in my house and in my garage and decorate with my own photos so I don't have to buy someone else's. So those were kind of the reasons why I wanted to do it, and just something to do, I guess. Gives me a hobby in the springtime before turkey season and fishing.
Yeah,
it fills the gap between ice fishing and and spring fishing and turkey hunting. So
yeah, I like the because I was like tinkering around on your website, and like looking at a duck in flight through like a still motion or a like snapshot of it that's incredibly detailed almost explains something about the duck to me. Like, because you can almost see on some of those pictures, like, all right, so he's like 5 feet off the water. Where's he looking? What is he looking for? And you're kind of like,
head's tilted, they're looking, the wings tipped. Yeah, I've never even, like, the stills for me is the deal too. Like, I've never like, both of my cameras probably take, like, I don't know, world class level video.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to run the video function on them. It's just something that's never appealed to me. Just due to the fact, unless you're selling it, unless you're one of the guys like some of those dudes that are making like that stuff for Sitka and that, unless I'm gonna get super deep into the video, no one looks at it. It's a quick thing. They look at it and it's gone. You can't put a video up on your wall and really watch it. You can watch it on TV, but it's not the same. So I like stills for that aspect of it. You just like, you can see the personality in a lot of the ducks in it. Like, as a guy looked through all my photos, you see them looking at other ducks. You see them looking down at the ground. You see them looking up at ducks flying overhead. Heck, you see them looking at me sometimes. You'd be amazed at how loud, like, that shutter on my camera. Like, I swear the thing is like I'm shooting my shotgun sometimes. If it's a fairly calm day or that light wind and it's blowing at them, I'll wait to start taking a photo, to start hitting it until they're like really where I want them, because I swear it's either the sound or the flash of the shutter that they see pointing at them, because it's closed. And I don't know if it's that or the sound, but man, you might as well shoot at them sometimes, because like they just flare, 2-3 shots into a burst and boom, and they're gone. So you got to get them kind of in the sweet spot as close as you can, and then I try.
That's crazy. I didn't realize you were like taking decoy. I mean, it makes sense. Well, first, I guess I kind of thought you were, taking pictures when you were hunting. And I was like really confused about that, because when we were talking on the phone, I was like, this dude likes to shoot his gun. I mean, how's he getting these amazing pictures and shooting birds?
So hunting would have to be so amazing if I was able to do that and shoot. The difference, the main difference is that in the spring when I'm doing it, I'm not. You take one shotgun blast and the slough erupts and they're gone.
Right.
So like some of like the coolest days I've had, I mean, there's probably been 3,000 to 5,000 ducks on a body of water. And I go down there and I kick them off, and they go fly half a mile away to where they don't necessarily want to be. They're content to be there for a bit, but I go set up quick, get hidden, get back in where I want to be, and those suckers start coming back, and they trickle back and they trickle back, and they might, they're going to come in, maybe land real quick, but within a few seconds, they're usually gone, whether from just seeing me or knowing I'm there somehow or whatever it is. They don't necessarily stay right there. They'll swim off. But those birds will raft up out on that body of water, so there's always birds moving around, and there's always birds flying and coming through. And I haven't completely scared them off every time even though that they don't chill out right in front of me. I'm not shotgun blasting them so that they're gone 3 miles away and never to be seen again. Right. They're staying on the deal, so I've got lots of opportunities. Whereas in the fall, it's basically the chances that you would get are what you would call in and do that. So it's a lot less. But I told myself I'm going to get more photos of mallards over decoys with guys coming up to shoot, that kind of stuff. Ducks coming in, I don't have a lot of mallard decoying photos. They're like I said, they don't decoy great in the spring like a diver does. So I'd like to get big flocks of mallards wadded up. I mean, for one, that's what I like. I mean, all my diver pictures, divers are cool. I love them. They're cool ducks. But I mean, without a doubt, a greenhead is where my heart lies in the duck world. So I want those photos too. So, and those are the ones that a lot of places they're buying stuff, they like that type of a photo too. But just having photos of the birds, even like last year, I just had some really crappy ones. When we got done hunting, I tried to sneak in a few, and even like with my super wide lens, but still having pictures of ducks coming in were super cool over the decoys, out of the boat. You can tell I was in the boat blind. There's some rushes in front. They're not as clean and crisp. They're not as like manicured as my ones in the spring are, because I'm hunting and trying to make the photography work rather than just making the photography work. So I clean it up. When I'm taking photos, I'm out there pulling weeds out of the way, so there's not a little thing sticking up here and there, and I'm knocking stuff down, and it's a lot different deal than when you're trying to hide a 19 or 18 foot boat, and so 3 guys can knock into a flock.
What man? Well, one thing is like, even though those photos are taken during the spring, there's something about those pictures, especially like the greenheads in flight, that like when I see some of those pictures, it makes my heart flutter a little bit, because it's like, it's that feeling of like that's what you want to see birds doing over your decoys. You know what I mean? Like, you really get that experience. I'm not trying to sound like emotionally fluttery, but it's like, it gets me fired up. It's like that's what you want,
Yep. That's kind of one of the things we were talking about, my motivation. I guess I should even mention that, but I want to photograph ducks in a hunting manner. Mm-hmm. That's why you don't see me post a lot of sitting ducks. Yeah. I mean, I do have some, and I've learned to take them just because they sell.
Yeah.
But it's not what I love. But what I love, to me, it's like I would never mount a duck sitting. I've never had a taxidermy mount sitting. To me, a duck is a flying thing, and whenever I think of a duck, they're flying.
Right.
So to me, they're in a hunting scenario, and that's why the decoy thing kind of presents that a lot of times. Either it's over decoys, or they're passing, or coming at you, or cupped, or whatever it is. I like to have that little touch that I think a hunter gets versus, just some a photographer and goes, oh, I think I'm going to go take my $10,000 camera out to the park today and take photos of ducks.
Yeah.
I hope my photos are set apart from that group immensely. I think they are.
100%, dude.
Yeah, they're good.
When I saw your photos on Instagram, I knew you were a hunter. Yeah,
To give a guy that's like us that feel of, even though you're not hunting, to have that look, and you stick something on the internet or whatever, you're like, oh, that's a cool scene. I connect to that photo rather than a mallard sitting in a muddy parking lot, or even if they're just taken not in the same places, your backgrounds are different and the things the ducks are doing are different. And yeah, that's kind of the other big motivating factor for me, is just to create those, sounds corny, but create those moments, like that connection to stuff.
No, I get it, dude. It comes across, man. Like, you know that because you come across like a lot of on Instagram for sure. You come across a lot of guys that are just nature photographers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And their shit's awesome, but
yeah,
it's not. It didn't hit me the way that like
emotion maybe.
Yeah, like I knew you were a hunter. I knew, like, I was like, this dude hunts ducks. You could just tell because you were getting the mallards sideways, as they're trying to come in, and that's what duck hunters love to see. That
Yep.
And then
you're not getting that sitting on the water or just getting up off the water. You're not getting that.
No.
If you don't, and if you are, you're not appreciating it. So you're probably thinking it's a bad photo if you have it, because it's not. It's not like the pristine in-flight sideways, flying straight ahead type deal. That kind of seems to be what everybody likes from that group, likes those types of photos. So you can see a specimen of a mallard, or a specimen of this teal or that teal or whatever. Whereas you're not seeing that kind of interaction and uniqueness of that bird and the things that makes a mallard.
Right.
Doing like that. Some feet kicked out and quacking in the middle of as he's coming down and all that kind of stuff.
What I noticed too, because when you're hunting, like you don't have time to really think about like what's going on and what these birds are doing. And so just going through your photos, so two things, going through your photos, I was able to see like the difference between pintails interacting with each other, mallards, some widgeon, and how they're kind of flying and like who they're following. Yeah. Is it a hen? Is it a drake? And then also I was on my bed clicking through them, and my dog wasn't paying attention. He was sleeping. And as I was clicking through, he like stood up and he was like, "Yeah!" I was like,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't even do that. That's
So
funny.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the deal, and I hope to add to that this coming year. I've told myself that I'm gonna do a little bit less shooting, or maybe convince my buddies to give me the easy singles and stuff right away, so I can knock my limit out and then take photos of them getting the shooting and doing all the other stuff. And I said I think I've got them convinced now to the point where they'll probably do that, because last year and the year before when I started, putting out decoys in the dark and picking up, I'm over there with my camera snapping photos, and I'm like, okay, it's really dark. I don't have much light. And they're like, what? I'm like, just don't move for a second and snap a photo. And then they're like, okay. And they're like, I'm like, okay, hold on. Sit right there for a minute. Don't move again. Don't move. Okay. Okay. And then I try to catch photos of them as they're doing their thing. And they're annoyed at first, but now that they've seen the photos I have and I share them with them, I'm like, oh, that's really freaking cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So I think I've got now to where they'll actually pose for them, not pose, but do their thing, and they understand what I need. And if I say, hey, I want to let me shoot the first few singles, and then when the flock comes in, I'll be done. And then I can take photos of you guys doing your thing and print them off for you or whatever. I think they get that because they know what's going to come out of it. So,
yeah.
I'm the guy who's like, no photos of me doing anything.
Yeah. I don't have a single picture of me. Like, all my pictures are of my brother, the dogs,
Yep.
Scott. Like,
I actually, what was it? We had one day we were coming back and we were driving the boat, and I said, here, I set everything up for him. I said, I even went over and focused the sucker in the right spot. I said, all you got to do is just hit this button and just take a bunch of photos of me just driving the boat. And so I finally had photos of me driving the boat. I'm like, God dang it. And it's actually a super cool photo. And there was a little article that a small newspaper in the state here did on me just about the photos here a couple weeks ago. And that was like their main photo. And so I'm like, Levi, you took that picture. And so it's pretty cool that I actually have a photo of me doing something other than, I don't know, like holding a dead duck or holding a fish or something,
Yeah,
actually
it's a
doing
cool picture for sure. I've seen that picture.
Yeah.
Do you shoot? Photography wise? I guess. Do you have like a shutter speed? Do you operate on shutter speed priority or aperture priority or 100% manual?
100% manual.
You do.
100%. But I do. But with that said, I have a couple. I've fluctuated a little bit over the years, and I think I've learned that I need to keep a shutter speed at a minimum of 1/1000th. I used to try to go lower than that. And you'll see some of my photos from a couple of years ago, a ton of blur in the wingtips, just that little bit of they're really blurred. And I like that, but the problem is it's super hard. It's like a 1/750th or 1/800th to get the face and the eyes sharp then, because they're moving and you're not going quick enough to stop that. If you get it right and it works, it's awesome. You got a nice amount of blur and the whole duck is crisp and sharp. But I just had too many photos that year that I really tried that, where they were everything. They just didn't snap enough. So this past year, I actually went up to like a minimum of like 1/1250th or even 1/1500 if I could, depending on the light scenario. So I try to keep, I basically just set my shutter like 1/1250, and then I change the aperture and my ISO based off that.
What's your aperture at?
I like to keep my aperture high. The reason being is that with these big lens, like a big telephoto lens, I shoot a 400 5.6, not the huge gigantic ones that you see guys have. It's a little smaller. And I'm a handheld. I don't use a tripod like most guys do that are doing similar stuff. But I like to have like at least like an f8 if I can, or more if the light allows you. It's tough. But the reason being is like if on a duck, if a duck's at 15 yards and he's coming at you and you focus on the chest, if you're at like, if my lens is wide open at 5.6, that his eye
be blurry.
might not be sharp.
Yeah.
It might be just a little bit blurry just from that little bit of a focus difference. Whereas if you can get to like f8 or f9 or f10, it'll help. It'll give you a little bit more of a focal wow, I can't think of what the word is called, but it gives you a little more
depth of
forgiveness.
field.
Depth of field, yeah.
Yeah.
Gives you a little more depth of field on there to be able to have that forgiveness of 12 inches or 6 inches and still have a sharp eye. And you'll actually see it, like, so someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, if you go on my website, there's a lot of photos where you'll see like an incoming duck. You'll see in my photo, and you'll see the water around that duck within maybe a foot to 2 feet around that duck looks really sharp, and everything in front of it and everything after it is just a total blur. Mm-hmm. So that in that little range of that plane, basically, there's like a vertical plane there of focus that you have, where it's perfectly sharp, and it gradually gets away from that depending on what your aperture is. It'll get bigger the bigger your, I guess, the larger number your aperture is. Get a little more forgiveness there. So I've tried to keep that as big, and then I just raise the ISO as much as I can. And with the way the cameras are getting better and better now, with a lot more ISO range, you're able to do that and not get grainy images and still have great photos.
Yeah.
But like when I had my 20D, you know, if I got to, heck, even my 1D2, which was a professional camera, if I got to ISO 800, the image was going to have a fair amount of grain to it. Whereas with my one now, you know, I can pretty comfortably shoot to like 1/2000, 1/3200, and it's not going to be, it'll still be usable. And like the newest ones, I'm sure like that 1DX and the 1DX2 are probably way beyond that already.
Yeah.
So the guy could pretty easily shoot at probably F10 pretty easily and have a fair amount of you know, forgiveness built into that right there.
Yeah. What we're talking about for people that are listening is basically when you're taking a picture, you have to have a certain amount of light come into the sensor. And there's like an optimal amount of light, and that's controlled by three things. Well, really two things: shutter speed, right? Shutter speed, yep. and aperture. And aperture is basically the little ring in the back of the lens that controls how much light there is. And so,
yep. That's right.
How much light.
That's how you explain it. It opens. You can control it. It gets bigger and smaller based on what setting you make it. It just shrinks down. And then the third thing would be the sensitivity. There's a setting on your cameras called the ISO, which back in the film days, it was called film speed or just ISO. And it ranges anywhere from 100 to like 200,000 now or something crazy. And the lower the number, the less sensitive it is to the light, but it's going to give you a more rich image and less grainy, clear image. Whereas you raise the higher, it does a better image of capturing the available light. But to do that, it's going to end up being a little bit grainier.
Right.
So you have three things to set it, and you to get an exposure right, to get it where your little meter says 0, you know, like if you put on autofocus and have it right, you have to combine those three things.
Right. And
doing it manually, I basically just set for the scene, and I'm pretty much good as long as the sun doesn't. If it goes behind a cloud, I change it a little bit. If it gets really cloudy, I change it a little bit more. If the sun comes out, goes down, comes up higher, and I have to move a little bit, all that kind of stuff. You have to account for it. Yeah. But for the most part, on any given day, I can pretty much walk out to a setup and be within one click of where I need to be on all my settings. Just from having done it enough, I know about where I need to be.
Really?
And then I just use the camera to meter. Like I just meter off of, like I always have GoldenEye decoys out, big white bright suckers. Mm-hmm. You know, that's going to be the brightest thing in my image pretty much. So I set on that, and I set everything up so that with that white, super bright white thing out there at 15 yards, which is about 15 to 20 yards, is about the range that I want a duck to be at or closer. I make it so that thing is at the top of what my camera can handle. Mm-hmm. And then I know that anything is going to be darker than that, and it's going to be pretty much perfect. And I can come home and deal with that afterwards.
Okay. So do you have like your little histogram up on your screen, and you're like judging your white balance off of?
No white balance, but I'll change the other settings off of that. Okay. So what I'll do is like there's a thing on metering. Like most cameras have a meter on them built in, and I'll turn it to a spot meter, which takes and just meters the light on one spot. So if I put that spot meter on that white GoldenEye, it's going to tell me I need this setting here, or it's going to say if I leave it where it's at, it's going to say, holy cow, your light is way up here pushing super far. You need to bring it down a little bit. So I bring it down a little bit. Well, then I keep it that same setting, and then I'll put it on the black chest of a redhead decoy. here, and it's going to say, God, you could turn it up a little bit. Well, you got to balance the two. There's never a perfect thing. And like, that's why like if you see photos, guys, on a bright sunny day, the guys who have photos of a bluebill with a pure white chest and a pure black chest and a white belly and black head, and you can see the detail and the feathers on the chest and the detail in the white. Those guys know what they're doing because they're setting the exposure that you're able to capture all the detail in not just the focus aspect, but you're catching the detail in the highest brights and in the darkest darks. And that's one of the bigger challenges. That's one of the bigger challenges. Like a mallard is pretty easy because it's kind of all the same. You got the white there, but otherwise it's all some darker colors. So it's not as tough. But some of those divers are a son of a gun because it's all black and white, and you're really fighting. You're fighting both ends of the light spectrum to get that, and you have to really scrunch it in there. And the way the better cameras have gotten, it's really made a big difference in that. Yeah. So.
And you don't have the skies blown out somehow.
Like, oh yeah, that's the other thing you have to do is make sure your skies aren't just a big white blob. Yeah. That stinks. You have clouds, and you want to see the cattails and the trees in the background. You want to see all that stuff that adds to the scene a little bit. Just a plain photo of a duck is neat if it's the right photo, but just a duck flying through the blue sky or a white sky, even worse. It's pretty boring. You want to see the clouds in the background and all that other stuff. So
I even like the one where the water tower's in the background because it adds something and it kind of transfers to the motion of the ducks in flight. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite photos, and it just happened by chance to be like that. But it seemed like I put it up that one day and I asked, do you like it or do you hate it? And overwhelmingly, almost everybody loved it, and I was shocked. I kind of thought it'd be a way more hate than love, but pretty much everybody likes that one. So
yeah, it's an awesome photo.
It just sets the place. I mean, that's what I talked about in that little article I did for that guy, is that it's cool, and you can't always control the background because the ducks really control the minute details of it. There's so many times like, God, just get 3 feet lower so that all of a sudden the cattail line comes in, or maybe the water comes into play. Then you got the water and the cattails and the sky, and then the ducks flying. But maybe they're just a little too high, and then all you got is ducks flying through the sky. And it's neat and they're cool photos, but it's not the same. It doesn't give the viewer any idea of what the ducks are in and what they're doing and where they're going and where they're coming from and where you're at, and it doesn't really give any sense of place to the thing. It's just a duck flying through the wild blue yonder, and it's a whole different feeling having that stuff there. I've even got one of a goldeneye flying at me, kind of coming out of a bank, and there's an old abandoned farmhouse across the lake in the background, and I personally think that one's super cool because it's like, you don't ever see that anywhere else, where it's just an old beat-up farmhouse again, half in the water. It's here, the goldeneye flying right out of the house, basically.
That's cool.
So those are the kind of things that are neat like that, I think. So
that's cool. Do you? I guess you're shooting a lot wider than what you're shooting, and then you're cropping, right? Mostly. Are you cropping a lot post?
Just by the fact that you can never get them close enough. If I ever start making money off of this deal at all, I'll probably either get a 500 or 400 millimeter, and that gives you a little more range. And then you can shoot with an extender too, which then you're shooting like 700-800 millimeters, and that's a huge difference. Doubling than what I'm getting now. And ideally, what I would like to do is have one camera set up with a big lens like that, and then keep my setup now with my smaller lens with a decent sized zoom on it or telephoto on it, so that you're still getting some shots, but you can still get those birds that are flying. I'm to the point, if a bird flies by me at 40 yards, unless it's a flock, like flocks are cool, and flocks are like the key. If you can get flocks of ducks doing their things, interacting, that's awesome. I love those shots. But if you have just a single duck flying by at more than 35 or 40 yards, I don't even take a photo anymore because I know I'm just going to eat it. You can't crop. It's going to be, if this was the frame of my whole photo, the duck's going to be a little speck like that on it, and you can't crop enough to make it really worth the while. You need, most all these photos that you see of an individual duck in mine, I would guess they're probably taken from 8 to 20 yards at a max.
Wow.
So they're close. Yeah.
Wow.
So like the flock stuff is wider, of course, because you have to, otherwise you'd only just get the center of the flock. But to get those up close ones, for me with my setup, I have to have them close.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's kind of cool to know that, just knowing I've had that many ducks in close and that many interactions with ducks,
Yeah.
high level, which is kind of fun. I like that.
That's awesome, man. It's let's just real quick before we kind of wrap things up, which is like every guy now or every crew has a guy that's taking a camera out in the field. I'm that guy for our team. I don't know why I say team, but just our group of guys that hunt. And then I started messing around with it last year, and I'm like the worst photographer ever. But I'm learning. What are the things that you are point guys towards as far as like we kind of covered buying a camera, but would you say mirrorless, DSLR? Should they go
I'll tell you what, I don't even know a thing about mirrorless. Like I go in like really streaky times. Like I'll go super techie for a while in terms of looking at cameras. Like, okay, and I'll probably end up doing it here this winter. I'll probably panic and be like, you know what, my camera's getting old. I'm going to get a new body. And so all of a sudden I will just spend reading forums and reading this and reading that and looking what's out there. And, God, should I buy a used 1DX or should I go crazy and buy the new one or should I get a 7D2 and compare and do that? And I'll do that for 2 months and then boom, then I'm out of it again. I got the camera that I need and I don't even pay attention to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I barely know what's going on. And like for me, like people always ask, hey, I've got this Nikon camera. I'm like, man, I don't know. I literally don't even know the models. I don't know. Like they have different lenses that some lenses work with some bodies. And I don't know. I can't help you out, man. I know the general of what I would want, but I don't know the specifics. And so like on that techie side of it, I would say if a guy's going to do, I think this is the little that I know about mirrorless. I think if a guy is doing the action photo type stuff, I think you probably want a DSLR. And like I said, I would go find a used sports model one. And there's a couple places. One place that I go and I tell people this all the time, it's called fredmiranda.com. Huge photography website, and they have an awesome you buy and sell forum where they have feedback on other buyers, so you know if someone's a crook or not. And I have bought tons of stuff from them and don't get ripped off. So that's my recommendation, is to go to there and start and try to find a good deal on a good used camera. And if you're going to do that, get yourself a nice camera and the lenses are the hard part too, because they do such different things. I mean, I'm not even like outside of the duck world. I don't do a ton of photography. I do a little bit here and there. I humor myself to when I go camping and I'll take it with, and I do some other stuff. But for the most part, I'm a duck guy, and I spatter in some other things here and there. But I mean, I have 5 or 6 lenses, and they all have their own specific little thing. And someone asks, well, hey, I have this. How would that work for that? I'm like, well, a 7200 will be good for getting some of the photos of your buddies hunting and this and that. But for ducks, for doing what I'm doing, I don't hardly ever use my 7200 unless I'm trying to get a wider view and catch more of the decoys in there, because you're not going to get that up close deal.
Right.
So there's such a different thing. There's such an array of like lenses and everything that a guy can get, and it gets expensive, especially when you're talking to someone that's trying to get into it. And a lot of people ask me, their kids, they're 14 to 20 years old, and they're not going to go drop $3 to $4 grand on camera equipment before they even know if they like it or not.
Yeah.
So I have to try to think, okay, what could you do that would work for all this, and maybe pick what you really want to do, and then get that lens that'll cover this too.
Right.
So, you got to figure out what you want to do. If you're just trying to get the photos of the dead duck held up in the air with the slough in the background that everybody is posting, or ducks hanging from a tree, you can use any lens is going to do that, and any camera is going to do that. Mm-hmm. You don't even need, and you could take a point and shoot and do those photos, and they're going to be probably indiscernible from what I would take with mine or any other camera.
Right.
But as soon as you start talking about motion and really working with the files, like if you're going to be, doing some editing and that kind of stuff and printing big prints, then you're going to want to start at least looking into like a better DSLR and doing that. So
yeah,
I don't even know like what the advantages of the mirrorless cameras are. I'm just like
I would agree 100%. I would say for me, I wish I had bought a used, better high-end full sensor or something like that camera over the new entry level camera.
Yep.
Because
there's no doubt in that.
Yeah.
I tell you, over the past 5 years, I've been asked, the question, what do you shoot with and what would you recommend? I've been asked it, I don't know, over 100 times. And I'll bet you that less than 1% of them have actually taken my advice, because it involves not getting the latest and greatest. It's not the fanciest thing out there. It doesn't have the most megapixels, and the viewing screen doesn't tilt, and it doesn't have. But that's not what you need.
Right.
That's very little bit of it. I mean, I would still take my old 1D2, which now is probably that's probably a 10-year-old camera, 8 megapixel, 8.2 or something megapixel camera, over the newest 80D any day for what I do.
Right.
Now, if you take like a new 7D2, which has a great focus system, then I'd probably take the new one. But just in terms of what those cameras are made for, that's what they're for, and that's what you use them for, and that's what they do well. And the prosumer, and more entry level ones, they're going to take great photos of the kid's soccer team and your dog sitting with the duck in its mouth. It's going to take all those photos great. It's going to be awesome. But it just isn't created with the idea of catching a bird this big moving at you at a changing rate of speed of 30 to 40 miles an hour with a crazy background behind it and trying to keep that thing in focus. That's not what they're made to do, whereas these other ones do a lot better job of that.
All right. Yeah.
And it's a small niche. It's a small niche market, that not a lot of guys are going to do that, but if you're going to do it, that's what you want.
It's just that I ended up with. I love my camera. I'm learning a lot of. I got the new Rebel, basically the digital Canon Rebel.
Yep.
It's 600D, right? And I can take great photos with it. I'm not going to take photos of birds coming in. I'm just not going to get that photo with it anywhere near what you're getting. A, I have a kit lens, and B, I just. The autofocus isn't great on it, but
there's no doubt that it would be more difficult. In the right scenarios, it would definitely work, and you'd get some great photos. But you're just not. It'd be like saying that you're gonna run a car slalom course with a Ford Escort as fast as you could with a Ferrari.
Right.
You're gonna get through it, and you're probably gonna do okay sometimes, but it's just not gonna be the same experience.
Right. But you could get that older model. You could get an older 5D or something, and
if you're gonna get a 5D, you'd want to stick with the 5D 3 and up.
Yeah,
that has the focus system in it. They have supposedly an awesome focus. Whereas I had an original 5D, which was an awesome camera for landscapes, and I was not impressed with it for moving subjects.
Yeah. Now they have 60 something focus points, and
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
The cameras have come a long ways just since I've been in it. I've only been in it real seriously for, I don't know, not terribly long. Probably since 2010, 2009 is when I kind of I'd say I got serious about it. Before that, I always tinkered and played a little bit and just poked around, kind of did what you did, had just a camera and just took photos, and I wasn't hauling my butt out into the slough, and I wasn't doing all the stuff that made the difference and actually really going from snapping photographs to having cool images.
Right. Are you Are you buying L lenses, the L lenses, or?
Most of them are now, yeah.
Yeah.
My 400, that's an L. The two that I use probably the most is, and I go from the far end of the spectrum, I go from a 16 to a 35, version 2, which is an L lens, and then that 400 5.6 is an L. And those are the two I use the most. One pretty much is mounted permanently to my 6D, and the other one is pretty much mounted to my 1D4 all the time. And I do have a 7200 that I use once in a while, and I bought a used 24 to 105 to put on my duck camera, so that I can get those photos. It's wide enough that I think I'll be able to get that wide shot of catching a guy next to me, catching his gun and catching his face, and catching the ducks on the far, but also having a little bit of zoom if I need it. Like if I got a flock of ducks coming in, I just want to track them on the way in as they're coming. I'll still be able to get that and catch the decoys. Then when I go all the way to 24, I'm still at a pretty wide lens there, and can catch a fair amount of the overall scene, and see what's going on, and you see the shore, and you see the ducks, and you see the decoys, and you see the front of the boat, maybe a little bit of the blind, and you see all that kind of stuff. So you kind of got the whole deal to really give that presence, I guess. So I bought that specifically for that purpose only. I'll see how much I use it, and hopefully it's a lot.
Yep. So you got the Lamborghini lenses and the Ferrari body. Like you got some serious money sunk into your setup.
No, it's not that bad though, because like I said, I bought them all used, and like even like my 400 lens, I mean, you can pick them up for like $800 now.
Really?
I mean, it's not. I'll tell you, a lot of the guys that are doing this similar stuff, I mean, they're shooting $8,000 lenses.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And you can tell me if their images are any better. I mean, some of them probably are, but that's what they're doing. And no doubt if I had it, I mean, there's times when I wish I had those lenses, no doubt. But a lot of times I'm glad I don't, because I'm able to move and get into different spots, and it's easier for me to get photos that maybe I wouldn't have gotten if I was stuck on a tripod with a big heavy lens. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's guys walking around with $15,000 to $20,000 in one body and one lens, is where I probably have $2,000.
Yeah. Have you ever dropped your camera in the water?
I have not, and not yet. At least I've come probably close. And considering all the crap I've walked through, and ice I've walked over, and muddy and rocky bottoms, I can't believe I haven't. Walking through logs. What I do is I don't carry my camera very much. When I'm walking somewhere, I got a few different systems of how I get to where I'm going. Either I've got a little lightweight, like 40-pound, 12-foot canoe that I'll take into places if I got to carry my canoe in. I've got a little Carson's duck boat that if I can just drop the boat off. I've taken my motor boats in, my actual off. And if I have to walk the whole way, I'll actually a lot of times just bring I got a big sled. I'll throw everything in it, and then I'll drag the sled through the water so that if I fall, the sled is still intact and the camera and lenses are still dry. So, which has come in handy a time. That's come in handy because I've fallen, but this other stuff stayed dry. So
that's good.
That was after I fell the first time, and I did like one of these deals where like camera kind of like I didn't fall all the way in, but I slipped, and like, oh God, I got to figure out a different system for this. So, yeah. So I've done that, and that works pretty slick actually. So, and if you need to, it's one of those deals I can sit in the sled if I can stay dry, put my stuff in there, and then if I have to, I can use it if it's slippery or it's muddy. I can use it as a thing to walk and kind of help, guide me a little bit. So, it depends on where you're at.
Cool, man. Well, yeah. I definitely probably gonna want to get you back on the podcast. You've been awesome.
That'd be cool.
I've been,
kind of fun.
Dude, it's just fun to talk to different people and hear different perspectives about duck hunting. And
everybody's coming from a somewhat different place in terms of what it means and where they started, and just the places and the ducks and everything about it's all a little different. So it's cool just to hear it.
Yeah. And I'd like to get your thoughts on some other, strategy stuff as far as working ducks and decoy setups even. I mean, I feel like everybody has their own philosophy on it, and those are some of the things that I want to talk to more people about and kind of break those things down. So I'd love to get you back on.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be good.
Yeah, man. Well, we've been doing this for 2 hours, so we should probably wrap it up.
I'm gonna go crank up the welder. I think I only got a month and a half to go, so
yeah,
lucky you.
Gotta get going.
Working on that blind still?
What's that?
Are you working on that blind still?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm sure I got a full month of work yet, so.
Wow.
Maybe not. It depends on how much work I get.
Boat blind?
Yeah, I'm building the high-low, like a Barney Caleb style aluminum blind. So I've taught myself how to weld a couple months ago, and just going to town on it. So I got the frame pretty much done. Now I'm just down to, I got a lot more. I got a little more framing to do, and I got sheet metal or sheet aluminum to do, and I got wiring and grassing and painting and interior, and I got a lot to do. So every day at this point is a big step forward that I can make. So
yeah.
Cool, man.
I figure I don't need it for early season. I got a couple other boats that I can use, but by late October I need it up and running. That's when I'm hunting the river and hunting the bigger bodies of water, and want to be able to slide that sucker up onto a shore and some cattails and call it good. Not have to cut brush every time, and put decoys out, push the boat in, and start cooking some eggs and wait for the sun to come up.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, dude, and we'll catch up with you, and definitely be following your photos for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Been fun.
Yeah,
Touch,
absolutely.
man.
Yep.
Definitely.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.